Thank you for joining us today. We will go ahead and get started. So hi, everyone. I'm Angel Hines. I'm the Public Policy Manager for the Christopher and Dana Rhee Foundation, and I'm excited to welcome you all here today for the webinar where we will discuss some of the barriers that people with disabilities face when seeking employment. Each October, National Disability Employment Awareness Month is celebrated to recognize the contributions of America's workers with disabilities, past and present, and showcase supportive, inclusive employment policies and practice. This month is also a time to bring awareness to common hurdles that individuals may face when seeking employment. So today we will hear a brief background on disability employment statistics to date, Medicaid and SSI asset limitation, employment pathways and waiting lists, and then we'll also learn more about the resources that we offer here at the Rhee Foundation through the National Paralysis Resource Center. And then at the end, we'll have some Q&A time because I know that this is a topic that's very important to all of you today. So I am thrilled to introduce you to today's guest speaker, Archer Archer, who will share his personal experience and perspective on this important topic. Archer is a graduate of UT Austin. He's a longtime member of the Texas Governor's Committee for People with Disabilities, chairman of the Accessibility Advisory Committee for Texas Parks and Wildlife. He is also the CEO and founder of Archer's Challenge, a nonprofit which challenges people to navigate the world from a wheelchair. And through this challenge, he has raised over $1 million to support accessibility for people with disabilities. So thank you so much, Archer, for joining us. That's enough from me, and I'm going to hand it over to you right now.
Absolutely. Thank you, Angel. And thank you, Kim and Gerard and Julia, for having me on and letting me be a part of this webinar. I'm super excited to be here, to have this conversation with you all, to answer questions that you might have at the end. And I will say, I've only done a couple of these webinars in the past, and it is particularly challenging to be captivating and engaging. And so if I come across as boring or unengaging, I apologize for that. It's challenging to do that over Zoom when I can't see your smiling faces and laughs and everything else. So there you go. I just wanted to start out by telling you a little bit about current employment statistics from last year for people with disabilities before we get into some Medicaid and SSI stuff. So as you can see on the screen, in 2021, employment for people with disabilities was up to 19.1% from 17.9% in 2020. For people without disabilities, the percentage employed was 63% in 2021, which is up from the prior year at 61.8%. And obviously this is a positive step for people with disabilities, but we need to continue to progress and move through this. And we're going to look at a couple of barriers that exacerbate some of the unemployment rate for people with disabilities. Okay, so here's some background about Medicaid and SSI. In 2021, there were about 80 million people enrolled in Medicaid nationwide. And there are 5 categories that Medicaid recipients commonly fall under: SSI, or supplemental security income, medically needy, poverty-stricken, whether you receive an 1115 waiver, and special income limit or other. And the thing to note is the majority of non-dual eligible recipients, meaning that they're under 65, meaning they don't also receive Medicare, fall under the SSI category at a total percentage of 86% of total Medicaid recipients across the country, which means that they receive Medicaid through the SSI pathway, meaning you receive a monthly SSI check. And this number of people is about 68 million people as of last year. Next slide, please. Here's some more background, and this kind of goes into the challenge that we're going to discuss, is that when you receive Medicaid through SSI, you are limited to earning $2,000 per month as an individual and $3,000 per month as a couple without losing your SSI benefits and thus losing your Medicaid and your services. Some of the resources that count towards the resource limit are cash, bank accounts, stocks and bonds, property and land, all of these things that I'm telling you, you probably already know. But the shocking thing is, and this is directly from the Social Security website, I don't know why they want to advertise this, but they do. The resource limit has not been changed since its inception or adjusted for inflation since 1984, which is over 36 years ago. That's shocking to me. Okay, next slide. And so here's kind of what I previously articulated in a problem statement, is that when you are a person with a disability, I have cerebral palsy, use a power wheelchair. As Angel said, I graduated from UT Austin with a degree in political science, very smart, very bright, want to be an engaging member of society, but receive Medicaid, which provides my intended care, therapy services, some medical care, some home adoption, some other things, services that you guys are probably familiar with. You can only earn that $2,000 a month without losing your benefits. And so this is something that I've been thinking about, working on with members of Congress to kind of attack. And I've been thinking about a lot of different solutions. And the next slide is one of those that I've thought of. So next slide. So this is a sliding scale care payment model that I have developed based on the most common salary ranges from 2020 and 2021 in the United States of America. Now, I will note two things. Number one, I ended the sliding scale at 200,000 because I had a actuarial firm do an analysis of my life, my expenses, what it takes for me to be taken care of. And I would have to earn over $200,000 a year myself to be able to go off Medicaid, pay for my benefits and my attendant care privately, and still have enough money to live independently. And then secondly, please note that this is a proposed solution, and none of this is set in stone. None of this is permanent. It's just been something I've been thinking about a way to solve this issue so that people with disabilities can live more financially independently. So the way that it works, as you can tell, is if you earn anywhere from $0 to $50,000 annually, you would pay 0% of your care costs. Your care costs would be free to you. As soon as you go above a $50,000 salary, you would pay anywhere from 10 to 15% of your waiver care costs, depending on what your annual salary is annually towards your care costs, allowing you to have skin in the game and be a taxpayer, be someone that takes pride in your own care, and also paying back to the government. And then as you make more money, you pay more and more. And again, I am for adjusting the numbers in this sliding scale. I just wanted to present this general idea or thought.
Sure. Thank you so much, Archer. Did we want to see, are there any questions right now that anyone has about this proposed solution, which would you would pay, if I'm understanding correctly, Archer, you pay a portion of your care costs, but you're able to have a salary and not lose your coverage.
Exactly. Exactly. And the idea is to make it a manageable payment for the person so that it doesn't overextend them financially, but they're still taking some responsibility for their care and responsibility for their independence. Barrier number 2 has to do with employment pathways and waiting lists. And as I'm sure a lot of you know, one of the biggest challenges with Medicaid is understanding the possible pathways to employment without losing benefits, and then also understanding the waiting list implications that come with those different employment pathways. And so basically the issue is if, so for example, for me personally, I'm a recipient of a 1915C home and community-based services waiver in the state of Texas. But if I were to go on one of the 25 different working pathways, whether it was ticket to work, buy-in, 1619B, so on and so forth, I would leave my 1915C waiver, and there's no guarantee that the services that I receive on my current waiver are commensurate with what I would receive on buy-in or not 1619B or ticket to work or whatever it might be. And so then I jump ship and I figure out, for whatever reason, for me, that this new program that I'm on doesn't work for me for whatever reason. I'm stuck on this program. You can't go back. You can't return to your original waiver because of the wait list. I'm sure you guys know, in Texas, the wait list is over 12 years long. I was put on the wait list when I was born. I waited 8.5 years to get on the program. In Washington, the wait list is almost 17 years long. In Virginia, the wait list is almost 10 years long. So if you decide to jump to one of these employment pathways and it doesn't work for you, you are in trouble because you can't go back. So the solution that I've come up with, it seems pretty simple to me, pretty self-explanatory. And Angel and I were discussing this the other day. Maybe it needs to be longer than 90 days. I think it definitely does. But I put that in there for policy purposes, to make it digestible, is to allow for the recipient to have a retroactive exploratory period of at least 90 days where the Social Security Administration, if you receive Medicaid through the SSI pathway, would know that you're exploring ticket to work or buy-in or 1619B. They would allow you to go onto that program retroactively, and then you're on that program, you understand that program, you get to know that program, and then you jump on it if it works for you. And if it doesn't work for you for whatever reason, you are allowed to jump back to your original waiver, thus cutting down wait lists and allowing some freedom within the waiver program so that you don't get stuck. Okay, next slide.
Archer, may I just interrupt you? This is Kim. I'm also with the Reef Foundation. I'm managing some of the questions that are coming in.
Yes,
And I was
sure.
wondering if I could just interrupt you. First, we had a attendee sort of confirm that some of your proposals would sound like a great start, because she mentioned that in California, her son can only gross 1,200, so his net is 900. And then we have a question from another attendee who asked about using Social Security work incentives. And I don't know if you can comment on that. And then the second part of her statement or her question is, if you're a SSI beneficiary, she's just stating that the $2,000 max is for assets, not earned income.
Right, that is correct. That is, and I appreciate that distinction. So that's an important distinction that I forgot to mention. She's correct about that. But that, for example, for me, or for her, or for anyone that wants to earn, for me in Texas, the earning limit, the income limit is $47,000 a year. But as we said in one of the original slides, the assets are considered bank accounts or cash or anything that the government can visually see. And so I could earn $47,000 a year working for somebody, but it would need to be cash that I stuff in my mattress, or I stuff in my freezer, or I just kind of have. It doesn't allow for saving or investment growth or any of that. She is correct. That's a very important distinction, but the challenge remains the same. Now, there are solutions to the saving challenge, and some of those solutions are such as the ABLE accounts, which are a really good start to that, but honestly, they're a drop in the bucket. There are special needs trusts, which are restricted funds, and it's basically like probating a will. You have to have an executor to use that. And then there are qualified income trusts, which are also restricted funds, which can only be used for certain expenses. But she is correct that those two things are different, but the asset limitation hamstrings you into earning unless you just want to live in a mountain of cash.
Thank you, Archer.
Thank you, Archer. It looks like we also have an additional question. Well, before we move on, and you may be addressing this, or it may not be appropriate for this webinar, but we have received a good question regarding the fact that you're using Medicaid as the example. She or he were curious about where Medicare recipients fit into this discussion, or is Medicaid and Medicare the same for this discussion?
They are not the same. There are different sets of rules for Medicare and SSI. In fact, Medicare has more robust benefits for SSI recipients than Medicare does. I mean, Medicaid, excuse me, I'm getting confused. I cannot answer the Medicare side of things because I don't work in that area. I don't receive Medicare. But there are different sets of rules. Excuse me. Some of them cross over, some of them do not. But yeah, that's a great question.
I can just briefly clarify, if you'd like, that in the discussion of SSI, Medicaid is more of what you'd be discussing because it is the income limitations. If we're talking about SSDI, Social Security Disability Income, if you're qualifying for that as someone with a disability, then you can be eligible for Medicare.
That is correct. SSDI and SSI have some crossover and some separate implications. SSDI mainly works in the Medicare space. That's correct, Zach.
Thank you, Zach. And that might be something that we do a follow-up conversation on a later date on the Medicare side. So I will move on to the next slide here.
Okay, so this is my last slide, and I just wanted to share this with you all. This is current legislation that's out there in the Senate right now to deal with some of the challenges that we've articulated. And this was introduced by Sherrod Brown and Rob Portman in the 117th Congress. And the legislation proposes to raise the resource limit to $10,000 for individuals and $20,000 for couples. Now, here's the deal, is as I believe Kim articulated that our mother in the chat said earlier, this will only go so far because you will earn over this, or you will have these assets over this easily. And so I'm only in favor of this for one reason, that it establishes a precedent for work in this area. And what I mean by that is I go to Congress all the time and they tell me, I'm working on something right now, and they tell me, Archer, this area is too hard. It's too big. It's too messy. It's too challenging, whatever. Well, if they were to do this, enact this legislation, it would give them proof that they were able to work in this area and progress, and it would be a good starting point for us to do more work in this area. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. And if there are any other questions, I'd be happy to answer. But that's pretty much all I have.
Tim, would you like to come up and would you like to chat more about our resources that we offer at the National Paralysis Resource Center?
Sure. Thank you so much, Angel and Archer, and my colleagues who are also on the panel, including my colleague Zach, who is an information specialist. So as many of you know, the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation operates the Paralysis Resource Center, and many of the resources that people contact us or in questions they request are around seeking employment, understanding benefits, understanding certain public, federal and state programs that one may benefit from. So if anyone has any specific questions, and as we're talking, we really were just focusing on a particular subject area around SSI, and we really appreciate Archer's perspective, but we know that there are many aspects. He mentioned ABLE Acts. We're going to do a webinar on ABLE accounts. We get a lot of questions around vocational rehab, but we get questions around SSDI, as Zach was saying. But so should you have any questions, I'd like everyone to know that our information specialists are, and the information will be in the chat, how you can contact us either online or you can call us directly. We, of course, will answer any question you may have about your particular employment situation, but I also wanted to let you know that we have the ability to do a pre-employment benefits consultation. And I just want to be clear that the consultant does not help you find a job or provide any job training, but what the consultant will do, because we receive so many questions, unique questions about certain employment situations, that they'll analyze the benefits you receive from the government and go over the pros and cons of employment with regards to your benefits. The Resource Center will pay for up to 3 hours of time with this consultant per client, so that's no charge to you. Again, please contact our information specialists. And we, again, have a variety of information. You see one of our specific booklets that address employment and include a variety of programs the government also oversees to help ensure that people have the opportunity to seek employment and hopefully not jeopardize the benefits they're receiving. And as you briefly heard from Archer, there are many complicating factors, especially if you're receiving or benefiting from a program like Medicaid, which has very specific state rules. And so moving around or accepting jobs in other states can prove really difficult. So I don't know if my colleague Zach wanted to add anything as an information specialist. I don't want to put you on the spot, but if there's something that you wanted to highlight specifically, please feel free to do that.
I think the most important thing to highlight is just that there are lots of services and supports that can help navigate this process. Unless you are an expert specialist in the field and have been doing it for years, there are so many ins and outs that can be difficult to navigate. There are, for people seeking employment with disabilities, there are state vocational rehabilitation programs that can assist with the process. There are local one-stops and workforce development centers that can help with the job seeking process, and independent living centers and other similar agencies that can help with the application for benefits and planning for benefits management.
Thank you so much, Zach. And I don't know, Archer, do you have anything to add, or Angel?
No, I don't. I would echo what Zach is saying. There are tons of resources out there to find different pathways to getting employment. I will caution everybody that these different pathways, I would recommend choosing one and sticking with one, because speaking from experience, if you go to one and you ask them a question and then you go to another one and you ask them the same question, you may or may not get the same answer. And so when we're talking about benefits and benefits implications and losing benefits and what the pros and cons are, stick with those benefit counselors. They will give you the true and correct and right answers. I've done it before myself, and still trying to navigate these challenges. But other than that, I think that's it. And if anyone else wants to contact me later on, ask more questions, have a conversation, whatever, please feel free to share my info.
We will. Thank you so much, Archer. I always appreciate hearing your perspective on these things.
And if anyone does need any information or resources for anything related to paralysis or finding things out about any of these processes, they can feel free to get in touch with the information specialist team.
Okay, yep, and the info is there. And also just a reminder, if you want to see this specific resource guide, that QR code will take you there to download it, and we can get it to you as well.
Angel, may I just a couple chats came in, a couple questions and comments. Would I just be able to highlight some of that right now?
Yes, please.
Thank you. I just wanted to highlight that a attendee just mentioned that it's been a tremendous help to her son's emotional and self-worth to return back to work. We completely understand that and hear that all the time. And he is a T4, T5 complete and loves going to work. And it breaks my heart that others do not have the same opportunity. And then the other comment or question is from an attendee asking, can clients from New York City contact the information specialist? And I can definitely answer that. Yes, anyone from any part of the country can contact us at the 1-800 number. We will serve or assist anyone who contacts us domestically and in fact even internationally as well. So please reach out to us.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Kim.
Mm-hmm.
And just before we go today, I wanted to bring on my colleague, Gerard, who is our grassroots and advocacy manager, just to, thank everyone for joining us and remind you about becoming an advocate if you're there. Are you there, Gerard?
Yes, I'm here. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you again, Angel, Kim, Zach, and Archer for a wonderful webinar. I had a great time just like hearing everyone's information. And I just want to come in here and just remind everyone to, if you haven't already, to please become an online advocate. And if you are already an online advocate, to please share the link, which I will paste in the chat right now. Or you could text advocate to 52886 on your mobile device, or you can also scan the QR code, which is on your screen right now. We just need 85 more advocates to reach 10,000. So we are so close, and we are hoping by the end of the year to reach that goal. But thank you all again for your support and for watching. And I'm gonna just throw it back to you, Angel. But thank you.
Hey, Angel, Leslie has a question, and she says, do you guys have any suggestions for employers getting resources to support the hiring process for people with disabilities?
That's a great question.
I can address this unless you.
Thank you, Zach.
Yeah, I think one of the best things to do as a start is to understand the accommodations process, and to have a basic policy and procedure in place, so that if there is a need for accommodations, you understand what needs to be put in place. There's the Jobs Accommodations Network, which is askjan.org, which is a national program that assists with information about different types of job accommodations, so you can have an idea about what may or may not be asked for if you have any questions. You can always participate in continuing education. Talk to someone with a disability if they want to talk to you, or participate in research to understand how to be more inclusive in your practices and procedures, and understanding using inclusive language so that you aren't putting anyone on the spot. Reviewing the laws to know what you can and can't ask of an applicant. There are certain things you can and certain things you can't ask, and it's always good to not put yourself in a liable place. There are specialized networks that you can post jobs to. Sometimes the state vocational rehabilitation programs will have their own job networks, and they provide qualified applicants directly and have their own programs that support employment. There are specialized websites as well that are targeted at employment for people with disabilities. But I think one of the best things to do is just to be inclusive in your process of putting your job into the space, that you're not creating a job that the duties of the job, that you understand the duties of the job are completable with or without reasonable accommodations. Some people may need a piece of equipment or a certain type of thing that will make their workspace easier and allow them to perform the job. And that goes for anybody. There are things that we can put in place that can make us more effective at our jobs.
Okay.
And if you have any more questions about that, feel free to let me know, or contact the information specialist team.
Thank you, Zach. Any more questions before we wrap up?
If I could ask one last question of Archer.
Yes.
Archer, I was just curious, thank you, Zach, for that wonderful answer. We're very grateful for our information specialist team. Do you have any opinions on that as an employee? I know these policies are very meaning, this is what your life's work is right now, but I was just curious.
Right. No, honestly, I would recommend for employers to get connected with their local VR networks and get on their employer list, because VR is always looking for employers that are willing to hire people with disabilities. But then also just, and I know this is easier said than done, but making it known that hiring people with disabilities is a priority for you or your company in the community. For example, here in Texas, I have a grocery store that's called HEB, and they are amazing. They hire all kinds of different people with disabilities. They're very active in the community. They're very involved in the community all across the state of Texas. And people know that they hire people with disabilities because they see them in their stores and they see them working and they see them around. And so just having a disability presence, Bridge, or Leslie, in your community is a huge first step to making it possible for people with disabilities to navigate and become employed with you.
It also is great for businesses' bottom lines ultimately, and that's one of the things about raising awareness is they're getting great workers, and it's been shown that companies that embrace diversity and inclusion significantly outperform their peers.
Thank you. So it looks like we may have one additional question. I don't know the answer to this. Archer, Angel, or Zach, you may know. Do employers get a certain tax or special benefits by hiring individuals with disabilities?
You know, I don't know of any tax benefits, but I think just building off of what Zach just said is that you know, having a company that shows that they care about diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility is really important. And there are a lot of, I know that some states have new requirements for their board of directors for companies of a certain size to have more equity on their boards. And so there are trends like that happening nationwide, but I don't know of any specific.
There are. If
Yes, there
unless
are.
Archer would like to speak to it. You can
No, you go ahead, Zach. There definitely are.
Yeah, there is the Work Opportunity Tax Credit, which is a federal program targeted for employers hiring people with disabilities. That's a federal program. There are also state and local programs, and there are additional tax benefits depending on the type of group that you are hiring. For example, disabled veterans are a group that is historically been marginalized, and there are specialized credits for hiring veterans and for people with disabilities. And also vocational rehabilitation programs also provide incentives in certain states for utilizing their employees. For example, New York has a program, a work tryout and on the job training where they pay a portion of the employee's salary. In the initial phases, you know, you're getting a great employee and it's supporting your bottom line. So there are either both federal and local programs to help with taxes and to also support with benefits. There is also the Disabled Access Tax Credit, which is another federal program that's a small business tax credit for businesses that are making accommodations for their business to either be more accessible or to create more inclusive policies and procedures. So there are tax breaks for making yourself more inclusive and for hiring.
That's awesome, Zach. Thank you.
So Bridge says, on my job, we are starting a new program to work with employers to hire individuals with disabilities. Any advice on how to start it up and how to spread the word? What can and can I disclose to an employer?
You can disclose as someone seeking employment. You can disclose whatever you want. Whether that's in your best interest or not is up to you. You don't need to disclose that you have a disability, and you don't need to disclose what your disability is either. An employer is not allowed to ask you if you're disabled or what your disability is. they can ask if you are able to do the job with or without reasonable accommodation. Which is the same thing they can ask anyone. Are you allowed to ask, are you able to do the job with or without reasonable accommodation? And that's not it's not something you would only ask someone with a disability. Also, if you're only asking questions to your applicants with disabilities, then you're being discriminatory in your hiring practice. So if you're standardizing the questions that you have to ask the same questions for everyone, and that are in compliance with your state and federal non-discrimination standards. Other question, part of that question, how do I start it up and spread the word? You know, I think Kim or Gerard and Archer could all speak to this as well, if you'd like, about just outreach to businesses and organizations. I think it's not something specific to the disability community. You know, it's marketing, publications, social media, boots on the ground, visiting places, meeting people, and just letting people know that you're out there.
Thank you, Zach. I would say that if it looks like Bridge has additional questions, I recommend you reach out to Zach or the information specialist directly, and we can take a look at your additional questions around this program, if that's okay with you. But I think outside of that, it looks like we don't have any more questions, I don't think.
No, I think, yep, I think that's it. Thank you so much to everyone who attended today. Archer, I really appreciate it. You know, I always enjoy talking to you about all of this. And so we will have to have you back again.
Of course. Yes, and happy to have conversations about vocational rehabilitation if folks have questions about that. And happy to have another conversation about that if we want to come back and do that. Now, I will say that my experience with VR is specific to Texas because I live in Texas, and VR is a federal and state partnership, and so each program is a little bit different. But we can talk about VR if we all feel like that's needed, or other resources as well. But I'm happy to be here, happy to talk to everyone, and I'll stay in touch.
Great, thank you. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.